Okay, so starting off then, we're going to start off with Rollerball, and I'm going to let Roger read the back of the box.
Well, thank you. First of all, the typeface that they use for Rollerball is, I think, one of the most beautiful futuristic typefaces.
I have to say that was
the 70s.
Okay, but the idea that like the numbers are the early 1970s version of digital number. Back when that was like a thing.
And you'll probably remember in Dark Star, all of the computer readouts are using the same typeface.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. Yeah.
And in those days, in order to do all that, you would have to buy the letra set. Transfer and
no, it looked like the archives computer program.
It would come in like transfer types, and you would have to rub the transfer down to make your cards. Well, everything about this box is beautiful. It has a beautiful the poster art from the movie, the one sheet from the movie, which is done in this kind of airbrushed like Atari 2600 video game box style, and they show all the society people on it with their kind of Halston gowns, and then James Caan with his spiked glove in a fist. The back reads, predominantly figuring in the rich genre of futuristic films, Rollerball takes a frightening look at life in the 21st century in its highly structured society, which has visually eliminated crime, pollution, and all other social dilemmas. Material comforts abound, making this existence seemingly perfect. However, the perfection is not apparent in the violent form of entertainment sought by the masses, the deadly physical contact sport of Rollerball. James Caan gives an impeccable performance as a battle-scarred veteran of the brutal sport, making the possibility of such a world all too alarmingly real. 123 minutes from Magnetic Video, a 20th Century Fox company.
I don't think that back of the box does that great a description of describing how important Rollerball is to this futuristic society, where the actual TV spot that they used to have was fantastic. In the future, there will be no war. There will be no poverty. There will be no political unrest. The only thing there will be is Rollerball.
You know, it's funny because that is on the poster.
Yes.
But it's not on the box.
It's not on the box.
And that really actually would be.
But that's what's important in this. I always have, look, and it's my problem with this movie. I always have a problem with the depiction of futuristic societies. You can't be too real as far as I'm concerned. And the minute I see phony costume design, which this movie is not terrible at, all right? This is not, that's not its Achilles heel, all right? But the minute I see uniform, terrible costume design, the minute I see unmotivated extras, all right, just mugging, not suggesting a social fabric going on, then I start asking questions and I start checking out. Here's the interesting thing about this movie in a strange way is either the film is too obscure. It's not telling us enough about exactly what the social fabric is. So we're left to make choices on our own, which normally I like. In this case, I think this movie is a little too obscure. And then when it's not being obscure, it's being dead on the money and telling you exactly what the fucking point is. But one of the things that's in the margins is watching this society, I got the impression that it's a similar society to 1984 with a similar set of bosses running it, i.e. the big brother, except here, as opposed to a totalitarianism, and everybody is made to be an assembly line worker, and everybody is just working at this gigantic auto plant, basically, is what their existence is. It's the opposite. No, you're just bathed in luxury. You're bathed in wealth, you're bathed in luxury, you're bathed in all the conveniences of modern time. There is no working class. Everybody is the same. And so you just have nothing but pleasures and you have nothing but leisure time. All right. But in order to have all these luxuries, you give up control over society. Basically, you're happy children. Happy enough. You're not, a child. My son is not asking how the rent is paid. My son is not asking who's paying the bills. My son is not asking a lot of different questions, but he is living under our totalitarian regime. Yeah. And he is meant to conform.
Your Google future.
Yeah. Yes.
It's Panem and Circenses, which is the bread and circus of old imperial Rome. The bread.
You don't worry about what we're doing with the rest of the world. You're a Roman and you just enjoy the pleasures of Rome.
The bread are these pills that they keep taking.
Yeah.
That's calming everybody down. It's keeping them basically from getting emotional about anything. The circus is obviously Rollerball.
Yeah.
And these aren't new things. This is not even a dystopian future. This is a dystopian present.
So that pill that they give them, that's for when they have, to use mixed mythologies, when they start having muscle memory that they're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
This pill is to put them back in a narcotic sense. All right. So just enjoy the high.
Aldous Huxley would have called it soma.
Yeah.
Which is just something to calm the masses down. And we have all these things today. I mean, some people might say TikTok is a kind of form of Panem.
Well, every form of entertainment, from movies to television. Well, that's what they said forever. That was the line, is TV is opium for the masses.
Sure. And
religion is opium for the masses.
I'm sure at one point books were the opium of the masses.
My favorite discussions between Quentin and Roger are the ones in which they disagree. And let me tell you, Rollerball was on Moonraker's level. Yes, the segment on Rollerball actually took longer than Moonraker to record, if you can believe that. Listen in as Quentin and Roger differ on the logic behind the world building in Rollerball. And, as always, Roger refers back to the original short story.
Look, I think it's a problem with the movie that there's obscurity about the rules of this society. And
well, we're never actually really shown anything outside of Jonathan's class, because I went back to the short story.
Okay,
written by William Harrison, who also wrote the screenplay. He lays it out very clearly. And actually, Bartholomew also kind of lays it out in his expository discussions.
Yeah.
That Bartholomew is sort of the executive in charge of
the John Houseman character.
The John Houseman character. There is an executive class. That's a ruling class. Mm-hmm. They make the decisions.
But that's the Communist Party.
And basically, he says the only thing we've ever asked is that executive decisions are not questioned. Other than that, everything seems to be taken care of for everybody, and everything seems to be fine. Now, Jonathan E., who's played by James Caan, he's a celebrity athlete, and he makes up what's called the provisional privileged class. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he has access to things.
To me, this doesn't sound any different than especially in the 70s. The ruling Communist Party.
I was just getting to communism,
but less in Russia and more in China.
Absolutely in China, because after the death of Mao, the next people said, "Well, this is not going to work unless we allow some people to get rich." And so they came up with the idea of capitalism for some of us.
Part of my problem with Rollerball is I don't buy the closed-mindedness of the executive class at the end of the day, where the Communist Party of China has actually shown themselves to be resilient, all right, to changing orders in the world.
Well, if you're
Communist China will eventually allow Hard Rock Cafe to put a Hard Rock Cafe in Beijing. That shows a nuance that's not in there with the executive class of Rollerball.
Until they decide they don't want it there.
The idea is that the tribalism of countries has been eradicated. And the idea is that 4 of the biggest companies have just decided to just divide up the world. The way the free world divided up Europe after World War II, these companies have divided up the earth. And so it's corporations running sections of the globe. My problem with them is they don't act enough like corporations. They act too much like dystopian governments. And the whole point of it is they should be acting from a profit motivation and being a corporation.
From the short story, the most powerful men in the world are the executives. They run the major corporations which fix prices, wages, and the general economy. And we all know that they're crooked. This is, by the way, in the short story, Jonathan is the one kind of narrating. But I have considerable power and money myself, and I'm still anxious. What can I possibly want, I ask myself, except possibly more knowledge?
That's gotten across in the movie, but that's
almost in an oblique way.
For all the times, there's twice that the movie errs by stating its theme, usually in the mouth of John Huston.
Yeah.
All right, delivering it, or Moses Gunn delivering it directly to the audience. that's a thing where they actually state the theme that's artistic.
Jewison places his movie sometime around 2018. Which seems about right to me, actually, and it's pretty clear that he through all the quotes that he's given and talking about the movie and everything, he kind of viewed this as, I'm sure when he read the short story, an allegory for himself on dealing with Hollywood, and dealing as a creative, growing too big for his britches, having to take the notes, always being on the outside. He's a Canadian.
Well, there is a very interesting aspect that I hadn't thought of until you just mentioned it. The whole concept is this dystopian future where an executive class runs everything. Do not question the orders of the executive class. But if you don't question the orders of the executive class, and you're a good employee and we like you, you're like we like you in the room. No, you're good. We like you. We like you, i.e. the executive class. Then you just keep your fucking mouth shut and do what you're supposed to do, and you will live a life of luxury. Well, what is the industry that exists completely through an executive class? It's Hollywood.
It's Hollywood.
And you tip over your own apple cart when you rock the boat of the executive class of Hollywood. Now, there are some people that are so powerful that they're beyond the executive class. They actually have the power of the executive class and they get to call their own rules. But other people, no, you're just working at the pleasure of this magnificent system and you don't rock the fucking boat.
And sometimes your success is not based on entirely on the greatness of your expression, but the fact that your expression happens to align with those of the corporation.
Okay, here's the thing I don't buy. There are no more wars. There are no more problems in the world because there's this futile, bloody sport
right.
that happens that,
that's why the Olympics were invented.
Well, I get that, but nobody says the Olympics, that achievement is meaningless. All right. That's their point. Yeah, no, I get the idea that the World Cup is popular because Italy and Argentina can fight each other and nobody's actually, it's all metaphorical. All right. I get that, but they're not creating a metaphor for war. They're creating a metaphor for carnage. They're creating a metaphor for cannon fodder. They're creating a metaphor for massacre. And only a score is only rooting interest, is only drama. It's the only drama inside of this massacre. And, I don't buy the fact that a superstar arising would bother a corporation so much. I actually think it would make Rollerball even more sellable.
Well, it's not that he's not succeeding enough for the corporation. It's just that he's not towing the line. He's not falling in line.
But it's in a different way, though. It's as if you're a bad wrestler, all right? And, okay, so the scenario now is that you're going to lose this match, and so the good wrestler can win. All right, so he's not following the scenario. But in their case, the scenario isn't winning or losing. It's, now you need to retire. All right, you need to step down. That's my point about this monolith, is the idea that any major corporate executive that is supposed to be the way John Houseman is in the piece, when he's watching the final game, okay, maybe the product the corporation is selling is Rollerball, and maybe the product is that it's senseless and useless, and that is the point. But they're still selling a product with a profit motive, all right, to customers. And when the customers show what they want, and they want Jonathan, then I think any corporate executive in that kind of power position, okay, change the plans. Okay, we were wrong. Okay, we were saying go right. Okay, no, it's go left. It's go left. It's a no. Now it's all about, we can still salvage exactly what it is we like about this product, but we can sell Jonathan. If the public wants Jonathan, then the public has spoken.
So plot-wise, James Caan plays the greatest rollerballer of all time, Jonathan E.
Yeah.
He's the best of the best. He's like the Joe Namath or the O.J. Simpson of their day.
He's the Jim Brown. Yeah,
he's the Jim Brown. He's the best of the best.
He's all three of those guys wrapped up in one ball.
He's so good that when they go to Madrid, the Madrid people are chanting Jonathan, Jonathan. And it's starting to get to the point where he's getting bigger than the game.
It's actually kind of interesting now that I'm thinking about it. Rollerball is kind of an unhumorous satire, where Death Race 2000 is a humorous satire. There's a satirical element,
for sure,
to Rollerball. It's just not trying to make you laugh.
I thought about it yesterday, and I was like, Rollerball is to Barry Lyndon as Death Race 2000 is to Tom Jones.
That's
Everybody loves Tom Jones.
It's a fantastic analogy.
They want to go see Tom Jones. Mm-hmm. Tom Jones is a great. You walk out like, woo, that's a great night at the movies. Let's go to dinner now. It's like a fun time. Yeah. Let's give that one a whole bunch of Academy Awards. Okay, in the meantime, Kubrick is over there on the side making, a serious,
something more austere,
an austere, somewhat pretentious approach.
There's no British music hall or comedy vibe.
The thing is, I thought about this because comparing these two movies, and they're easily comparable, and one was actually
they also have they're easily comparable, and they also have an opposite effect. Really about them. They're like literally on like two different sides of a seesaw.
I don't look at these films as one being better than the other, because I think they're both such magnificent movies. I see them as confederates of each other, as they are saying the same thing.
I like Death Race 2000 more, but I completely agree with you. They are symbiotically connected. They are confederates. They are linked in arms.
Knowledge is what Jonathan wants, and there's a discussion about knowledge and giving knowledge in the short story. This is Bartholomew telling Jonathan, knowledge, he tells me, either converts to power or it converts to melancholy. So Jonathan is actually, there's a scene where Jonathan is trying to tell the new recruits, which is also mentioned in the book, the kind of the new guys, the new players are there.
New guys on the team.
And the level of knowledge that he's expected to give is sort of like how to play the game. And he starts telling them strategies. How to do this, how to do that, how to knock things over. And they actually don't want to listen. They're just like, we're just going to crush heads. Mm-hmm. And he almost has to make a point of it. Mm-hmm. So Jonathan's knowledge, and he's at the top of his game, nobody even wants to take anymore. It's actually inconsequential the more they're peeling away the rules of the game. His knowledge is useless. Stay in your lane. I mean, you have a pretty big lane, but you've got to stay in it.
One of the things about the futuristic society and Rollerball that I thought was really funny was I found it near identical to the futuristic society Woody Allen puts forth in Sleeper.
With the orb.
Except one is completely humorless and one is like the humorlessness is played for comedy. To the point that it almost feels as if John Houseman is walking around Sleeper at some point. His character, we wouldn't have to even give him any jokes. His character could be walking around Sleeper.
But, having all those people at the party and how they're kind of, hey, and they're wiping each other's faces with their hands.
No, it seems like
hey, would you want a pill? And they're all grooving out. And
it makes Sleeper look like the Saturday Night Live parody of Rollerball. I mean, to the point that John Beck is in both of them.
Oh, right. He is.
That was John Beck's time.
Yeah. All the executives dream of being rollerballers, Moon Pie. Bashing heads.
So John Beck exists in both universes, in both futures, the Sleeper future and the Rollerball future.
They're adjacent.
Which I say are...
They're adjacent.
At the least, they're adjacent, if they're not exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this break.
Roger is my father. He would play this movie for me over and over, but I don't really remember watching it. All I remember about this movie is the sequence where they are blowing up the trees.
Yeah.
Because he would play that scene and he would just okay, we're going to watch the tree burning scene.
Okay, so the scene is we're at this crazy party, which may as well be the party.
It's supposed to be Jonathan's retirement party, but he doesn't
Jonathan's
retire.
Farewell party. It's become his farewell party that he doesn't want to do farewell. And all the executives are there, and it turns into this kind of groovy Hollywood party where everybody's pill popping and wife swapping and doing whatever. And then in the wee hours of the morning when everybody's kind of passed out and everything, a bunch of people come out of a room and kind of all half drunk, and a little group of them carrying this crazy pistol, and they go out into the backyard, this vast backyard of this place where there's this row of trees, and start crazily shooting with this gun that has bullets that just blow trees up. And the kind of the lust of a destruction and the glee that starts filling these people as they're wantonly firing this gun against nature, because it bores them because I'm not even sure why. It's just
for
because
fun.
of the apathy of the world that
Just
they're
for
in.
fun. To be honest, I haven't watched this movie like as an adult. I've seen this movie as a kid and I didn't really like the movie as a kid. Like I didn't understand it. It's like long, it's boring to me. Okay, now I'm 27. I've been doing this podcast for a little while. I've been working with my dad for a little while. Okay, I get it now. I understand. And part of the reason I understand this, and I'm sure a lot of viewers have picked up on Roger's love for this piece of media, is because of The Prisoner.
Yeah, he is number 6 actually.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
What do they want from Patrick McGowan? Information. He is not just
You
a
won't
number.
get it.
Yeah, and you won't get it. By hook or by crook, I will.
Yeah.
He is not a number. He is a free man. And Jonathan's jersey is number 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
But so that's why I understand the movie is because who is number 1? You are number 6. I love that locker room sequence, which kind of just sets up the whole entire tone of the movie for me, especially that line that Roger quoted earlier, which is, you want to be an executive, but they dream of being you. And it's because number 9, who's the really cool guy with the scar on his face.
Moon Pie.
Moon Pie. He's just kind of gotten on the team and he's taken under his wing and he doesn't even have his privilege card yet. At the very beginning of the movie, he says, man, when I get my privilege card, the first thing I'm going to do is get a secretary.
Yeah,
It's the very first thing I'm going to do. So he's just coming up to being able to get his privilege, which is a secretary.
Yeah.
Now, the sequence afterwards where the executive wants to speak with James Caan, I don't think his wife went on her own free will. Because first off, it's like, oh yeah, I heard that she wanted to go, but they've taken everything from me.
Well, that would be truly dystopian if she wasn't in control, because nobody in this world, if it's truly dystopian, is making their own choice.
Yeah, and I don't think that his wife left him on her own free will. I think she's been moved like cattle kind of to the next job, to the next place, because an executive looked at her and an executive wanted her. And he even says that. And the guy's like, oh yeah, I heard she left on her own free will. But no one has free will in this world except maybe for the executives. And it's a debate if it is true or not that she left on her, she wanted to leave.
It's more consistent with my view of this world that Jonathan is in, that she has no actual free choice, just like he has no free choice. Ultimately, in the end, they're just tools of the executive class.
I think this is a problem with the film. There is, like, I think I'm officially on record as being a proponent of ambiguity, but not to the point where it's like everything is a fucking question. You know, I mean, there is a certain aspect that I want to have my feet solid on the ground when it comes to an entire world mythology that you're selling me. And you don't have to answer everything, but you should give me enough answers that I have more of a fighting chance when it comes to me making decisions on my own about why characters did what they did. There's just so much unknown about this, and even vaguely contradictory. All right.
Well, putting the short story aside,
okay,
it actually is not that ambiguous, because he says, like, well, you know, he brings up his wife, and he's like, oh, do we have to get into that again? You know, she left. She went with the other executive. She went on her own free will. Like, that's like, stop bringing that up. And he can't stop bringing it up. He's in love.
Yeah.
He's in love, and he just wants her back. Let's just really quickly just talk about how great Norman Jewison is.
Yes.
Because when I saw the film before this recent reviewing a couple of years back, I was watching, I was thinking, God, how did he do this? How do you make this movie that is clearly a fable about Hollywood and an anti-corporate thing? And how do you do that when basically you're making it about the very business that you're in? And, well, he produced it as well. Yeah. This is the most Norman Jewison film there is, and I think it's in many ways his most personal statement. I think it's even still his best film, personally.
Really?
Because I watch this movie and I think this is an absolutely ludicrous sport to try to capture. This is the most wonky idea on paper. And if you showed me roller derby from the 70s and said, we're going to make a big roller derby movie, I just don't know that I would have had this vision. And yet the vision that he does from the opening, even with the kind of the artifice of using the toccata and fugue in D minor, you know, you know, like really becoming self-conscious about all that.
Dodger Stadium kind of organ, yeah.
Yeah, and then shooting it in this kind of very realistic way on this very large and very realistic set, and then making it feel somewhat real. This ridiculous concept making it feel real can only be appreciated by watching the remake of the movie. It was by a director I love very much, but I just do not like the film.
Okay, well,
and when you watch that film, you see in anyone else's hands what the production design looks like. I mean, this is production designed by John Box, who did The Keep, who did Sorcerer. This is
this is great. This is
one
great
of the most
production
beautiful movies, I think, of all time.
The first 15 minutes, which is just basically, it starts with the first 15 minutes it starts with a full-on presentation of a rollerball game right at the beginning.
Yeah, from the audiences coming in to
exactly.
From the game itself.
From the beginning, from an empty auditorium to a full auditorium to a full game.
Yeah.
Played out in about 15 minutes. Those 15 minutes are so exciting. He manages to do a magnificent job of both filming it thrillingly as an action filmmaker, filming it thrillingly, and also still sort of duplicate TV coverage.
Yeah, helping you to understand watching the game.
But just better TV coverage than you would normally see.
He gives you exactly what you want right away.
Yeah, it's almost his strategy to thwart viewers' expectations about every other aspect of the film, except for the first 15 minutes where he gives you the TV spot that made you buy a ticket in the first place.
It feels
there's a lot of things about the society that Rollerball takes place in that's my problem with the film that I do not understand. I do understand the game.
Yeah.
Okay, so 36 minutes and he goes to that library. Okay, that library sequence, I was like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. We are currently living in Rollerball today because he's not talking to a librarian. He's talking to the internet.
Yeah.
Where everything has been edited.
He's talking to the AI in charge of the information on the internet.
They make a big deal about the idea that it's like they give a book about history or a book about whatever subject to this computer. The computer takes it and breaks it down to facts and then holds those facts in the computer. And then you come and then you ask the computer questions. So that is the equivalent of Google. You're given information, but you're not given history. You're given the answer, but you're not given context. You don't learn anything.
I love it because Moon Pie first off says, "What do you need books for?" And he's like, I want to learn. And then afterwards he says, "Anything you need to know, you can just hire a corporate teacher."
Yeah.
It's just to control exactly and to curate exactly what you know. And later he goes to the AI. Now, this ties into my theory, Quentin, about why the rollerball industry does not focus strictly on him. Okay, so when he's at his farewell party, his coach and him are talking, and they're trying to figure out who is making these rule changes. Like, why are these rule changes being made so simply? And they don't know. It's someone above the executive class that's making these changes.
Who else could that be?
It's the computer.
It's Zero.
It's Zero, the computer.
It's more than number one. It's Zero.
Yeah. And Zero, the computer, in my opinion, is the one above the ruling class that is making these rule changes because they are afraid of James Caan, of Jonathan E. Because Jonathan E. is more than the game. And as they say in the very last scene, this was never meant to be a game. Never. It's meant to be the thing that placates society. That
a metaphor for cannon fodder.
Yeah.
It's literally what's supposed to placate the consumer class to make them think, hey, every week you get your rollerball game. You get to see a couple of guys die. Their heads get bashed in. You're happy. You're satiated. You don't need to go read that book. You don't have to ask what happened to the 13th century, which, by the way, was Genghis Khan conquering Europe and sweeping his way through.
Attempting to conquer Europe and his final battle in Linetz in Poland.
But that's
it's when all of Europe gathered together to hold off the invasion that was coming.
That's what the computer's throwing away. We can't find the 13th century. We don't know what happened there. No one is bigger than the game, but all of a sudden Jonathan becomes bigger than the game. And the computer is terrified of that because once you're not looking at your iPhone screen and you're actually looking at a figure, like you're looking at God, you're bigger than the game.
I mean, it's one of the weird situations of this time that we live in is for my entire life, I've filled my head with all this facts about movies and this and that and the other, and only for it to come to a time where That's information is just on everybody's iPhone. And so you sit there and you have a talk with somebody, and then they look it up, all right, as you're talking, and then they see what you're talking about. And either they criticize you because you didn't get it 100% right, according to what this thing says, according to what they're reading. Forget about the fact that I actually have knowledge. They don't know shit.
You were there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they don't have knowledge either, because they have the answer to their question for the second, but they're not going to remember it. It's not going to stay in their head. You know, when I went to the library and I looked up this movie and then wrote down, the cinematographer of
made your own IMDb listing
of Southern Precinct 13 was Douglas Knapp,
yeah.
You know, and then Joseph Kaplan was the producer, and wrote that stuff down. Well, then as years went on, I remembered writing that down.
Yeah,
that's knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's actually inspirational, Quentin. I just want to let you know, I've started not looking at my phone, and I take a time and I think, okay, can I remember? Can I recall? Yeah. And I actually find myself being able to recall, but it's desperately, you always want to reach for that like device because you've been trained to. It's a crutch to not use your brain.
Know, there's a line which I have to mention in the short story, where Bartholomew is telling him, we have great film libraries. You could get a permit to see anything you want. The Renaissance, Greek philosophers. I saw a nice summary film on the life and thought of Plato the other day. And so what's the difference between that and a streaming service when history gets boiled down to a few short documentaries that are available for streaming if you subscribe to that service? And he makes another really good point about the books being gone. Bartholomew says, I'm one of the few with real regrets about what happened to the books. Everything is still on tapes, but it just isn't the same, is it? Nowadays, only the computer specialists read the tapes, and we're right back to the Middle Ages when only the monks could read the Latin script.
Let's talk a little bit about the Tokyo sequence, because that sequence and that fight is, in my opinion, really good. Like, it's I don't like sports movies, but I actually got emotional during the Tokyo sequence. Like, first off, when the Tokyo team, they play dirty and they don't play by the rules, and there are less rules in this one. And they come down like a little arrow.
Oh, I love their little formation that they come in on. Yeah. Like Jonathan and his guys tend to go in a line. They go in line. Yeah. And those guys go in kind of a delta formation as they come. I love their little, and how they skate with their...
Yeah, with their
fists going forward.
Their judo.
Yeah, their judo fists.
And so before all these rollerball games, just like we have the national anthem before sports games, they play the corporate anthem. And
the corporate hymn.
Yeah, the corporate
hymn.
Which is so tuneless, it could have been written by Chris Sarandon in lipstick.
God, I'm so glad I'm not hearing that.
And I think they make a point out of making it very bland.
No, it's like tuneless. There's absolutely no tune to it at all.
You would never be able to hum that back.
When you actually hear the national anthem played in Death Race 2000, it seems like the most rhythmic song ever after watching Rollerball's corporate hymn.
So they're playing the corporate hymn.
Bland by design. And the Japanese team and the Houston team, specifically Houston, not USA, it's all cities because there are no countries anymore.
Yes.
Houston versus Tokyo. And they're kind of sizing each other up during this corporate hymn. I got emotional during this Tokyo sequence because number 9, Moon Pie, his protege, the Japanese team, they play dirty. And Jonathan has been kind of trying to like tell them like they use judo and stuff like that. But the new guys, they just want to like go in and bash heads. They just want to go get bloody and take their gloves and stuff. And when they get to Tokyo, they are not prepared for the Tokyo team. This Tokyo team, they're like, oh, these guys are small. They are vicious. Jonathan, number 6, tells number 9, Moon Pie, to stay close, stay close, stay close. And at one point, they hit Jonathan. The Tokyo team attacks Jonathan, and he falls, and he has to get substituted out for just a second because his shoulder, that old injury that he has on his shoulder, gets hurt. And when he's not out on the track, the Tokyo team attacks Moon Pie. And it is, I got emotional actually, because it is, 3 of them jump on him and they take off his helmet and they raise their glove and they punch him in the back of the head. and you can tell he's out.
They actually do to him what he's joking about doing to people, about punching him in the ganglia.
Yeah.
And
During the training
he's
sequence.
like kind of joking out, all you got to do to these little guys is just punch them in the ganglia.
And that's what happens to him. And he hits the ground and they take him off the track. And James Caan as Jonathan is sitting in the substitution zone and his shoulder's all bloody and his pad is sticking out of the other shoulder. And he sees them bring Moon Pie in and they put a pillow under his head and I'm going to cry. They put the oxygen on his face and James Caan sees him. And what does he do? He ties his laces really tight and he goes back out there and he fights and he goes and he tracks down those guys.
Those 3 guys.
And he
Kicks ass
kicks their ass.
appropriately.
He kills them.
Yeah.
When he takes off Tokyo number 4's helmet and he does to Tokyo number 4 what Tokyo number 4 just did to number 9, and the look in his eyes because he realizes this is what the game's turned into. And he goes and he visits Moon Pie in the coma, and the doctor just wants him to sign his release form that they can turn off life support. Oh, he's just a vegetable. Oh, he doesn't dream. There's nothing going on there. And Jonathan says, even a plant feels something. It senses life. It turns towards the sun. It's alive, isn't it?
Okay, can I just add? Because the doctor in that is Bert Kwok. And actually, my favorite fucking line in the entire movie is after. Okay, so you just did the perfect, like, the plant doesn't need this. But if you subject him towards the light, isn't it? He
They turn
alive,
to the
isn't
sun.
It's like, who's to say? Not sign this.
And then afterwards, he's like,
It's like my favorite line in the movie. Who's to say? Not just sign here.
and then he follows it up with saying, this hospital has rules. And James Caan turns to him and says, no, it doesn't.
And he's basically, well, if there's no rules in the game, there's no rules
Yeah,
in life.
Yes, exactly.
And it's so good.
I had a boss. I worked for a while as a headhunter at a headhunting organization.
Executive search, ironically.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. Yes, it is. That's what a headhunter is. But I remember the boss of the company was a big Rollerball fan. He goes, man, I mean, one of the great moments of a movie was the end. And then just during that final moment, and when the whole crowd, Jonathan, he talked to, he got, like he got misty, all right, talking about it.
And just Jonathan alone on the track, on fire, dead bodies everywhere, skating. He's supposed to have gone down, and he's fought back against the man.
I will say, while I am arguing against the movie, all right, as this 3X structure is going on, even I responded to the final round of the game because it was so like the first round of the game. Norman Jewison, the director, takes over.
If this conversation made you interested in Rollerball, it is available for streaming all over. I picked up my VHS on eBay for $8.99. It is an MGM UA original release.
Bam.